Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV, episode 623. You got Dank, your host, and I got some stories to talk to you about and current events. But first, I thought it'd be interesting to run through some comments that we've had on YouTube about the show. When Blue Whale was on the show, somebody wrote in and said, "I'd like to hear how the research on medical use is going in Israel. It'd be cool to have known the exact dosage needed for treatment. I'm currently on a mainstream med for seizures, and it is bad news. Most of the same side effects of weed, but instead of a pleasant feeling of peace and joy, while it has not happened to me, it is known to cause psychotic problems. Personally, I'd rather have the peace and joy. Had I the full info on it, I would not have signed the release to take it, but the person with the form was, I'm sorry, it's hard to read the spelling, was no more informed than myself. I learned of the possible problem via Google search. I was curious if it was why I am always feeling tired and a bit yucky. Weed might cause some fatigue, but not the yucky." So I hope that Eliza Pike is able to work that out. That was on episode 609, by the way, and episode 611, Dirty Qwerty, that's an interesting name. It's talking about Blue Whale again. Says, "Damn, this guy has a few grams of keef in his hat. Ha ha! Look at 9 minutes and 5 seconds." And somebody else wrote in saying, "Don't smoke that hat, get a lid and scrape it on." And when David Raymond was in, David Raymond wrote a couple of things on the comments, so I won't go into it now, but go ahead and check that out on YouTube at episode 612, and you can read David's comments. Episode 619, Tim F. wrote, "Great show, guys." So we always like to hear a good word. And then number 620, Jason Voluntarism Humes wrote, "Google voluntarism." So I looked up the definition of voluntarism. It is a philosophy according to which all forms of human association should be voluntary as far as possible. So, I don't know. Anyway, he wrote in, and then he wrote in again and said, "Taxation is theft." And then he wrote in again and he says, "Good show, Dank." So anyway, that's the comments up till currently. Starting from 6:01 up to 6:20, well, 22 or 23 as of tonight. But anyway, I thought it might be interesting to people what some of the comments that we're getting. And remember now, September 27th, that's Tuesday next week, is the Cannabis Science Pub. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the subject's going to be on that event. But that's the event is put on by the OG Analytical and Oregon's Constant Gardeners, two great community members, cannabis business, and yet great community members. And so that's the September 25th. It's the last Tuesday of each month, and in October it's the 25th. You want to put that there in your calendars because it's really not to miss. I mean, it's free and it's a lot of great information. It's at World Pies, which a lot of us know as the Cosmic, and that's on the corner of 8th and Charlton, or it's at 199 West 8th, and I say on the corner of Charlton. And of course, we've got Hempstock coming up. Now, Hempstock, and you can go to Facebook, and type in hemp stock, and or you can go to hempstock.org. At any rate, that's coming up. That's this weekend. That's the 25th and 26th. I'll be speaking on the 25th, and that's Saturday at 10 minutes to 8. I'll be speaking, that's the 8 in the evening. I'll be speaking right before Normal Beans band plays. So that's really great, really neat. I'm glad you put it that way. Normal Bean is, of course, our music guy for the Emerald Empire Hemp Fest, and so he's going to be at the hemp stock, and I'll be able to speak right before that. So that'll be a great thing. Also, not cannabis related, but for your, I wanted to let this word out for my fellow veterans. The Eugene Stand Down is on the calendar for October 14th. It just says Eugene Stand Down. I haven't gotten a location, but there is information, phone numbers, and email addresses for 2 different persons on that. And so you can send me an email to dankbagman@hotmail.com, and I can give you that information, or just Google it like I did. That's on the 14th of October. And then coming up, the Cannabis in Wonderland, which would be the Harvest Festival. Normal Bean is the main guy behind that one, and that's going to be up on the McKenzie, Blue River, on private property. It could be camping. I've forgotten the rates, but it's really reasonable, like $20 or something. I can't forgotten, but real reasonable, and it's very close to what I think is the best hot springs in the state of Oregon, too, by the way. And so that's on Saturday and Sunday, October 29th and 30th, and the website is cannabisinwonderland.com. So check that out and try to attend and support our friend Normal Bean. The Emerald Empire Hemp Fest still needs trailer parking, and I keep forgetting to bring that up in the past. So if anybody out there has some space that we could store a utility trailer or 2, as many as 8, we have 8 of them actually, but we need spaces to store our trailers. We've put all our equipment on utility trailers, and so it's easier to move when we need to move them, and we generally load them up and just leave them until the event, and then take them to the event and use the equipment, and then load it back up, and there it sits again for the next year. So anyway, we need spaces. I've been able to provide spaces through my employment up until last year, so now we're constantly scratching and looking, trying to find places to park them. So if you could get a hold of me again, or the Emerald Empire Hemp Fest, or dankbagman@hotmail.com, and let me know. I really appreciate it, because we could really use some help with that. So that's the end of the announcements. This first story this evening is I need to do more research on this, because I remember in the past, Normal, the organization, the National Organization for the Regulation, or the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. There, I got it. Of course, a lot of us used to say it really stands for the National Organization of Rich Marijuana Lawyers, but anyway, we won't go there. Anyway, this is a story that I found on, it was RT.com, and it's titled, "Police Test First Marijuana Breathalyzer on Cali Drivers." This is dated September 14th. Police in the U.S. have gotten their hands on a marijuana breathalyzer, and drivers in California were among the first to be tested, with nationwide distribution planned for next year. As part of the initial field test, several erratic drivers were pulled over and asked to voluntarily blow into the breathalyzer. 2 of the drivers who took part in the test admitted to smoking marijuana in the previous 30 minutes and delivered a positive reading on the handheld device. Other drivers who confessed to smoking pot within the previous 2 to 3 hours were also tested positive. None of them were arrested, although those who tested positive were not allowed to continue driving. Basically, everyone agreed because they were curious, said Mike Lynn, CEO of Hound Labs, the Oakland-based company who developed the device with some help from the University of California's chemistry department. Lynn, who also works as the emergency room director in Oakland, California, and a reserve officer with the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, tagged along with officers to assist in the pullovers and testing. We're not trying to arrest anyone. Sure, we could arrest people, and people arrested every day for driving stoned. But the objective was not to put people in jail, but to educate them and use the device if they volunteered so we could get the data. Lynn added. One driver was arrested during the testing, however, but for being under the influence of alcohol. The groundbreaking device can detect THC, the main ingredient in pot, on a person's breath when they have eaten food like gummy bears or brownies as well as alcohol. Following some more tests to validate the technology's results, Hound Labs hopes to widely distribute the device to law enforcement in the first half of next year. Until now, police had to rely on an imperfect system of testing saliva, urine, and blood samples to measure marijuana in the system, which can show the presence of drugs days after the user is actually under the influence. Chief of Police in Lompoc, California, Patrick Walsh, has already thrown his support behind the innovative device, which he plans on issuing to at least 6 of his departments over the next 6 months. We are looking for the least invasive way to obtain information that indicates impairment, which is why we are participating in roadside tests, said Walsh in the company press release. We don't want to arrest people who are not impaired, and yet we don't want marijuana drivers driving if they're high from recent use, he added. So there you have it. I need to do some more research, because I remember in the past shows that I've done stories that were, like I said, National Organization of Reform of Marijuana Laws, specifically Paul Armento, I forgot the exact name, but anyway, he talked about that, and I explained why that he didn't think the breathalyzers would work, and so I need to get those stories. So stay tuned to future shows, and we'll look into that. This one here is the headline struck me as, I thought, wow, I could be doing some comments on this one, but let's go through the story first, and then we'll see what we got. But this was in the Oregonian, or on Oregon Live, the internet version of the Oregonian, written by Noel Crombie, who is kind of like one of their main marijuana reporters, reporting on the issues. Dated September 16th, titled "Poll: Most Oregonians View Legal Pot Favorably 2 years after the vote." 2 years after voting for recreational marijuana, a majority of Oregon voters view the policy as a success, according to a new poll. 61% of voters think the legalization of recreational marijuana has had a positive impact on the state, while fewer than 1/3 see it negatively, according to polling by DHM Research, a nonpartisan opinion research firm with an office in Portland. In 2014, 56% of Oregon voters said yes to legalizing marijuana for recreational use. So I'll get back to this in a few minutes. We've got to take a break. In the second half, we're going to talk some more about the favorable report on legalization. And I like to say it's not legal yet because there's still penalties involved. You know, it's actually further decriminalization, but it's not legalization. So keep your mind on what's what and what's real. So that's what we all need to do. So anyway, we'll come back and finish up this story and do some others. So I'll be here, and I sure hope you will.
If you're an adult who enjoys a good beer, there's a similar product you might want to know about. One without all the calories and serious health problems. Less toxic so it doesn't cause hangovers or overdose deaths, and it's not linked to violence or reckless behavior. Marijuana, less harmful than alcohol, and time to treat it that way. For more information, visit marijuanaissafer.org.
Hey, Dank here, and I'm back to the second half of episode 623. We're doing a story about titled "Polls: Most Oregonians View Legal Pot Favorably 2 years after the vote." And I had just read in 2014, 56% of Oregon voters said yes to legalizing marijuana for recreational use. DHM Research paid for the poll. John Horvick, the firm's vice president and political director, said his firm decided to conduct the poll because the topic comes up frequently in the in the cities and counties where the company works, and it made sense to gain more insight about what the mood was. The poll found that while most voters see legalization as a positive, older voters are more skeptical than the younger ones. 53% of voters 65 and older, for instance, think the new law has been negative, while 24% of people younger than 65 see it in that way. Republicans, too, were less positive, with 52% viewing legal cannabis negatively. Meanwhile, Democrats and non-affiliated voters or voters in another party overwhelmingly think legal cannabis has been positive. Big picture, I think Oregonians are relatively satisfied, Horvick said. I don't think a lot of minds have changed, but the general acceptance of marijuana continues apace, if there hasn't been a backlash. The poll also found that most voters oppose bans on recreational marijuana sales. The poll did not address medical marijuana. 50 communities from Lake Oswego to Pendleton will vote in November on a range of questions that, in essence, boil down to whether they should allow legal marijuana businesses within their borders. 60% of voters statewide oppose bans on recreational marijuana sales, the poll found. Opposition to bans is strongest in the Portland area, while a smaller majority of voters outside of the metro area oppose them. In the Portland area, 60% oppose bans. Outside of the region, 54% are opposed. Oregon voters also favor local sales taxes on recreational marijuana, the poll found. 69% of voters approve of local taxes on cannabis. Local governments may impose a sales tax as much as 3% on recreational marijuana, but the tax must be approved by voters. The local tax is on top of the 17% tax the state will impose on recreational sales starting when the Oregon Liquor Control Commission begins regulating the market later this year. According to the Oregon Department of Revenue, a local tax is on the November ballot in 106 communities, including Portland, where officials conservatively estimate it will generate $3 to $5 million a year. Though some may not view legalization positively in the abstract, an overwhelmingly majority believe their communities should seek benefits in the form of increased tax revenues, Horvick said. The poll found a high level of support that was nearly universal across demographic groups, including party and geography. Taken as a whole, these results reveal that revenue may reign supreme when it comes to recreational marijuana in Oregon, the firm said in a summary of its poll results. So I'm kind of mixed feelings about that, especially when the thing is, I was pro tax myself. Said yes, let's legalize cannabis for personal use, and we'll pay taxes, no problem. But then Measure 1 is passed, and I realized that how well it passed. It dawned on me that wait a minute, we just made a pact with the devil, because now we've got more taxes. And let's face it, as a cannabis user, we've been taxed since 1937 when it was made illegal. I've said this before, so I hope I'm not repeating myself to too many people, but we've been taxed since 1937 when they became illegal, and they were jailing people, they were fining people, they've stolen people's property, destroyed families. It goes on and on and on. So that's, as far as I'm concerned, we've been taxed. We've been taxed since 1937. So it's time to stop and not keep adding more taxes. We need to stop. It's a plant. I want control on marijuana like we do on tomatoes. That's where I'm looking at. It's a plant. So anyway, I got off the soapbox and back on the stories. So anyway, Interesting, we have a problem here with fraud in the industry. So this is from the Oregonian again, written again by Noel Crombie, dated September 2nd, titled Oregon Imposes a Fine in Marijuana-Related Fraud. Oregon regulators have fined a Happy Valley man for allegedly bilking an investor out of about $80,000 for a bogus marijuana-related enterprise. The Oregon Department of Consumer and Business Services ordered Todd C. Grange to pay $60,000 in fines for violating state security laws. It's the second time the agency has imposed fines in a marijuana-related securities fraud investigation. In July, the state ordered Tisha Seiler, CEO of a Northwest Portland pot dispensary called Kanika, to pay $40,000 in fines for multiple violations of state security laws, including selling securities without a license. Seiler appealed the order. The appeal is pending. In the latest case, the state concluded that Grange took thousands from a Colorado investor for a marijuana business called THC Pharmaceutical, which the state described as a sham public offering. Grange could not be reached for comment. He has a previous theft conviction in Washington State. State documents show the company website offered investors the chance to convert $10,000 into $150,000. The state also determined that Grange's claims to have raised $9 million from 27 investors and the company have been in business for at least 5 years were false. Investigators concluded that THC Pharmaceutical was never incorporated in Oregon. This is a classic case of a fraudster going out there and pitching in investment and that is clearly too good to be true, using the hot new industry as the hook, said Jake Sunderland, a spokesman for the agency. Sometimes it's oil, sometimes it's gold, sometimes it's silver. In this case, it's marijuana. Grange told the investor, identified in the state file as Jack Salazar of Pueblo, Colorado, that a $25,000 investment could result in about $1 million in shares. The company, the investor was told, was merging with a publicly traded one. Salazar, in 2014, sent money to the bogus company's Milwaukee mailing address, according to the state's order. The investor never received any shares in any entity affiliated with THCP. In fact, there is no evidence whatsoever that THCP planned to merge with any publicly traded company, the order states. What is more, such a merger would be impossible because THCP does not exist. A state investigator, Chris Aldrich, concluded that the company was essentially a pyramid scheme whereby persons are enticed by high returns that will be paid within a very short period of time. There is no evidence to support that THCP is anything but an internet website which solicits funds. Aldrich wrote in the affidavit included in the state's file. The state can issue a proposed order spelling out the wrongdoing and imposing a fine. The parties can either negotiate a resolution, which typically involves agreeing to a set of findings and paying a fine and restitution, or the case goes before an administrative law judge. In this case, Grange appealed the state's order, but then dropped out of the process, officials said. Restitution to victims can only be included in a negotiated settlement. State officials encouraged other investors who gave money to Grange for the business to contact the Department of Consumer and Business Services at 866-814-9710. So, as I like to say, the money changers are in the temple and they're not leaving. But I guess you got to expect problems, new industry and all. And so this is, and we have another story from the Oregonian, Oregon Live, which is the internet version of that, dated September 14th this year. and they're saying that Oregon Live is hosting a forum on business of cannabis. And it says whether you grow your own marijuana, process the plant, or run a cannabis shop, it's not like any other business. Conventional banking isn't possible. Tax credits and deductions aren't available. And investing in the new industry comes with significant risks. The Oregon Live will convene a panel of experts to discuss the complexities of operating a marijuana business in Oregon and what entrepreneurs and local investors will want to know about financing these new enterprises. The event will be held at 6 p.m. Monday, October 21st at Revolution Hall. That's at 1300 Southeast Stark in Southeast Portland. I'll give out that information here in a minute and again. Panelists to include U.S. Representative Earl Blumenauer, Dave Koplik, an attorney with the Emerge Law Group, a representative from the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, and Noah Starks, CEO of Cannabis Securities. Staff writer Noel Crombie will moderate. The forum is part of the Big Idea series, which brings together experts, community leaders, and citizens to discuss important important public policy issues affecting Oregonians. The year-long series explores topics chosen by the Oregon Live News and editorial team. So, once again, you ready for pencil and paper? I hope you're ready. 6 p.m. That's on a Monday, October 24th, at Revolution Hall, 1300 Southeast Stark in Portland. That's October 24th, and it's on a Monday at 6 p.m. So if you're interested, that's probably going to be worth the effort, because you get a lot of good information and networking, because the people that attend that type of thing will be handing out flyers and business cards, and so it's just be a good thing all the way around if you're into that. So anyway, you got Dank here, and I hope you'll be here next week, and we could always use a company. You can come on in and be a guest and just watch the show, how we do it here, or better yet, come on in and tell your cannabis story. Love to have people come in and tell their cannabis stories. Get a hold of Dank. We'll see you later.